Ahsoka costume that was for him, and it looked a little weird on a grown adult. So he decided that he should do one for his daughter, Julia, so I'll take it away.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, it took a little while on me. I don't put in a bikini. But basically, this was the process we started, I think, 2008. We wanted to do a big, giant parade event for Halloween up in Massachusetts. So Brian was debuting his Rex for one of the first times, I think. And we had a great member up there, Brian at the time, who did an amazing Anakin costume. So he did the animated version of Anakin. He had all the armor and all the robes. So I really wanted to make an Ahsoka costume for my daughter because normally she troops as a Jawa with us, and I thought it'd be cool to have an animated costume for her. So basically, when I started working on this, I ran into the same exact problem that Brian ran into, the impossible CGI proportions. If you look at Ahsoka in the cartoon, her head is massive. For a real person, it would probably be a good foot wider at least. Her eyes are huge. Basically, the features, the very long limbs, it's just hips way up in her stomach somewhere. It's just really an odd shape. So, I was stuck with the same exact problems he had, is trying to make this fit on an actual human being. So, and of course, in the end, you obviously needed wearability and comfort. And I'm still probably not there either, as you can tell, but it's getting a lot closer. So for reference material, you're left with the animation stills, a lot of those. There are a few maquettes out there and statues. And there was also the costume they made for Disney. And I'm not sure, but I believe the Lucasfilm touring suit is a variation on the Disney suit. Some parts look a little bit different. But those are the references I had to go on. And the Disney suit did a really good job in bringing it more towards a real human being. So I use that a lot as my main reference. Okay. So for the building techniques, like Wally encountered, you pretty much run the gamut of everything. Sculpting, molding, casting, everything you see there, really working. And a lot of that I didn't have experience with, so I had a lot of help from my wife, because I can't sew to save my life. And sculpting, this was one of my first forays into that. I had taken it in college way back when, but I had never ever sculpted an appliance. So this was an adventure for sure. So I went in and I decided to use a wet clay, which you can use with water, but you have to keep it wet. So that was the challenge of always keeping it covered with a wet cloth over it, wrapped in plastic, and just keep going at it every day, working and working and working. I'd take pictures of it from every angle, and look at all my reference again. I'd sit a few days looking at it, and I'd say, wow, that is completely awful. And I would just rip half of it off and go again. And just kept going and going for weeks and weeks and weeks. Eventually, I was comfortable enough with how it fit to mold it up. So that's the second picture there. I was putting the clay seam mold around. You have to put a wall where it's actually going to separate your mold. So that's what that is. And then the third picture, you can see the actual mold itself. And it's all clamshelled together and screwed together tight. And basically, there's a few options you can go with. You can go with a plaster mold or something called alginate, which basically, you go to the dentist, they'll take it, pressures your teeth, something like that. And what I went was with this product from Smooth On. It's called Shell Shock, and it's more of a plastic material. Next slide. So my first attempts were with silicone, because everything I had read said that silicone is far more realistic to the touch. It moves a lot easier. It's just a really great product. So I went with something called Dragon Skin. The first picture here is the silicone piece in the mold. And basically I would paint it in little tabs of mold, a couple layers, layering it up. And eventually I'd screw it together and then just start pouring the silicone into it, and you just shake it around and move it around. But unlike the latex, you can't pour it back out, because once that sets, once it's mixed, it sets within 5 minutes or so. So you're left with what you have. So it's really difficult to work with. eventually I got to the point where they just weren't working the way I wanted so much, so I wanted to give them an attempt at latex. And the piece my daughter Julia here is wearing now is latex. It holds its shape much better. It doesn't have to have so much support underneath. And the drawbacks is that it's obviously a little stiffer. It doesn't feel quite as skin-like. But I think it does the job a lot better for our purposes. So then you go on to other things, like all the other pieces that she has to wear, leatherworking. I originally done it like the Disney suit. It looks like it was actually a very thick craft foam. And I wanted to go for something more durable, so I went with leather. So I teach myself, okay, I've never done leatherworking, so let's go with that. So I went into some wet forming leather, and just shaping it and cutting it and scoring it, and made the new garments that she's wearing right now. Also, this tabard that she's wearing is a piece of leather, and all these detail work pieces are actually etched in. That's not painted on there. So that was originally stained that darker color, and then everything else where you see pink was etched away from it, so it's more like a suede feel. And then I went over and painted it. Also did the belt, that's all leather work and metal working for the buckle and like that. The only thing that's original from the very first time I did it was the pouch, which is still a foam pouch that is painted to look like leather.
And Bob, if I'm not mistaken, the tabard, did you say you had to redo that because the Disney one wasn't accurate? Like you were looking at a...
Yeah, that's actually the thing.
So be careful if you're referencing.
You see this picture on the screen, there's a lot more detail work. The horns on the diamond shapes in the center, or on the Disney models, tabards. Then I started looking at the actual suits as more images came out, and realized none of those horns were even supposed to be there. So I went back and etched those out, and repainted the whole thing again.
Pay no attention to the men behind the curtain over here. Yeah, right. Send some troopers over there. Troopers, check that out. Okay, so the results. The first one, 2008, Raven Julia for the parade. That first headpiece was actually airform clay, Crayola clay. But what ended up happening was the more clay I added, it started very light. But the more clay you add, the more it dries, and it became very heavy and uncomfortable. And it is completely stiff because it's a molded piece. She couldn't turn her head or anything. So, yeah, needless to say, she hated that piece. And also she went with the bodysuit for the past because it was not go parade, it was cold. And now, this was a few weeks ago, the first test of putting everything together with the newer parts.